And I'm just gonna
Sounds good.
you're gonna be white. Let me just give you control of both. Okay, so make whatever first move you would normally make. Okay. And your opponent goes here. What do you think of this move?
Yeah, challenging my center and doing it with maybe what people would think of as a less valuable pawn. I have my center pawn under attack. Um, and so, yeah, I've got my option to take, push past, or defend it. Um, maybe a nice, I guess technically it's already defended by the queen. Um, so I could just continue with normal development. And even if I were to like do my Joe Bob London approach, a take. It's not ideal to get the queen out that soon and get hit by the knight coming out. Um, so maybe another nice idea would be a developing move and defense. And without maybe way overthinking it, we could do that. Or I guess technically even another pawn in the center.
Okay, so I think it's important to talk about the queen recapture. And if you let him take and you take this back, you already mentioned he's gonna kick your queen around with the knight, right?
Right.
So that's giving black free moves. So you never want to bring your queen out knowingly giving your opponent free moves. So we're automatically going to throw that in the garbage. We definitely don't want that to happen.
Cool.
Um, Next, let's talk about defending it with a minor piece. Sure, if he takes back and we take with the knight, and he let's just say he develops. Sure, it's not the same thing as him hitting the queen because it's just a trade. So he's not bullying us. However, we will no longer have our awesome, strong pawn presence in the center if we take back with a piece. So if I just pass the, oops, if I just, why'd I pass the turn? If I do this, I mean, he doesn't even have to do this. The point is he's going to get the center with tempo.
Right.
And then you're going to kick this somewhere. He's going to develop the knight. He's going to play for this. He's going to go here. And you're missing pawns. So you also definitely don't want that to happen. Whenever one of your two strong pawns are here, if you can take back with a pawn without, ruining your position somehow, you definitely want to do that. So in this scenario, if you just play the normal queen's gambit move, he's going to take and you bring your queen out, you know that's bad because it gives him free moves and you know how much I love free moves and how much they help my position. So
Right.
you don't want to give your opponent free stuff. Um, so if he goes here, you do have the option of pushing past, which is technically the most principled move, but it can also get you in trouble if you don't know what you're doing because you're overextending in a sense, like very early in the game. Move two. So if you just want to be more solid and say, okay, I'm going to defend this, you have two choices. You can either just take it, and that way you don't have to think about that pawn anymore. It's gone from your brain. You just consider it a lost cause. Assume he's going to take it back at some point, and then you just develop the rest of your position normally as if it didn't exist. Or if you do defend it, it has to be with a pawn. So now that I gave you three options, defend with this pawn, or take. I mean, you could push, and we can explore that if you're interested. So you get to pick one of these four moves.
Um, Yeah, I like the idea of the push. It stays on the board. I'm taking some space. It looks like I've got a pretty obvious defensive maneuver. However, he decides to look at it and come out and try to defend against that. Um, it does sound a little bit like not overextending yourself. And um, my thought is using the non-central pawn, just like he's done, so that if he takes and then I recapture, we're both missing a C pawn, and I'm not down. He hasn't given up a C pawn for a D pawn. So how about if we try that move?
Okay. So c3, just defending the center, opening up the queen. The drawback is it takes away the square from the knight, but that's not like the biggest concern in the world. Just a small thing to notice.
Right.
Okay, so now black takes your pawn.
Well, I moved this here to take it, so it seems like the right move would be to recapture with the piece I put in play.
Exactly. Definitely no queen in the center. Okay, so now black says, you know what? I'm going to develop a piece, pressure your pawn.
Yeah, again, the pawn is still defended by the queen, and if I were to recapture with it, this is not the knight that can come out and pressure the queen immediately, but it is again bringing the queen out. Another nice move is to defend while getting some development, defending the center, getting a couple of squares, the same ones that he's trying to control. So I'd probably, with those looks, um, do a defense with the knight.
Okay, now bringing the knight out is definitely a great developing move. Defends the pawn, controls the center, helps repair castling. I like it. I just want to talk about two other things. If he does take this pawn, let's just say it's his turn and he takes it, and we take back with the queen, are we happy or are we unhappy?
Oh, we're happy because we gave up a pawn for a 3 point piece.
Right. We're definitely willing to bring the queen in the center if we're winning a piece. We don't mind that. So, okay, so we don't mind if he takes. However, the knight out is still a good move, even though it's defended. So, knight out is a good move. Can you give me, let's say, two more candidate moves that might be playable?
Yeah. We could, since we're not worried about this pawn immediately, it's not immediately under attack. We could do a development. We have gained a nice natural development square for our queen's knight. Um, and then also our bishop has some visibility out here, so we could just do um, another move. Um, I guess my thought is, regardless of where we would try to send the bishop, both of these queenside moves aren't getting us closer to castle and kingside, and we've weakened our pawn defense on the queen side. So I think ultimately I'm still probably looking towards that king's knight development.
I agree. So we're going to develop the king's knight out. But if we were to develop, for some reason, this bishop, which square do you think is the most effective square?
Two that look good is I'll do them in like reverse. The second favorite one might be here because it's looking down this diagonal.
Hmm.
And if he were to continue developing this way, it looks like he may castle that way, so it would prevent castling in the current configuration. Um, and it's nice, and any kind of attack on it doesn't look like it. He's not one move away from really kicking that bishop away. Maybe a more passive move would be to e3. It just over defends that central pawn, but it does block my pawn development. So I changed my mind. I would say if I had one square to look at, we'd be looking at f4.
Correct. F4 is a very nice diagonal, open line of sight for the bishop, and you definitely don't want to block this pawn, which we intend to move at some point to develop our bishop. So we're going to go with your move, as it makes a lot of sense. The other thing I wanted to ask you is, in my videos, what do I say about a knight and what you should do?
Yeah, if you have a chance to kick a knight with a pawn, you should at least consider it.
Right, so assume we kick this. How do we, like, what do we think? Where's his knight going to go, maybe?
Um, Probably forward if you can. You don't want to do a backwards move unless you're forced to. We have weakened that e5 square, um, or he could even come down to b4, which would, oh, it attacks the pawn that we just moved, but again, still defended by the queen. We'd be happy to recapture.
All right, b4 seems a little like he's trapping his own knight. After we kick it, he's going to have to go to some weird square. But he can
Yeah.
definitely jump into the center, which you should first and foremost look at if a knight can jump into the center when you kick it. In this case, we're not controlling that square with a knight or with anything else. Now it's possible that once he goes here, we can look around, get free tempo developing moves, and you could go for that maybe, when you feel more confident in overall. And it's just something I want you to know about in general, not something I want you to necessarily play. So we're going to develop the knight, and black's going to play a6.
Looks like kind of a nothing move. It's maybe eventually, it does control this square, and that usually is where some pieces like to try to move. Um, but it seems like maybe premature to do that, so we could take advantage of that. He's not stopping us from putting two pawns in the center, so we could put two pawns in the center.
We definitely could put two pawns in the center, but on every single turn, we're also going to consider what?
We want to consider controlling the center. We want to consider piece development that helps defend the center, and eventual move towards king safety because castling is a nice move.
That's all correct. What about this knight? Has anything changed?
Yeah. Now, if we go back to the consider kicking a knight if you can, he loses the ability to go to that juicy center square because I've got it defended now.
All right, so now the line is way worse for him because his knight does not have a good square to go to. So when you have to look at this kicking move on every single turn of yours. You can't just look last turn, say, well, maybe it's good, maybe it's not, and then never look at it again. It has to be the first move you look at from here on out on every single turn. Um,
Gotcha.
yeah, so
Yeah, and that move comes with tempo. It doesn't prevent me from next move if I like what I see, taking that second pawn into the center as well.
exactly. Okay, so now that we talked about that, do we want to go here or are we choosing to kick the knight? Either one is fine.
I like the idea of that was our thought last time, but we ruled it out, and we took away that weakness with our previous move, bringing the knight out to f3, and he didn't do anything to discourage that. So that pawn push to kick the knight, making him move a piece a second time.
Exactly. If he played something like e6, controlling that square from the pawn, that's a different story, but he didn't do anything. So now we act on our threat of kicking the knight. So now let's say he goes already. I'm not going to make this move, but let's say black goes here. What is white's move? We,
So
we spoke about
what
the square
he's
before, so I'm curious.
Yeah, so what this is threatening is to capture our pawn, but it's defended still, and we'd be happily to bring the queen out to do that. But we do have a nice move to kick it, and now where does that knight go? He took away his own retreat square. He doesn't want to go back to where he was fleeing from. Um, yeah, it doesn't look like he has any other really fantastic options of where to put that knight.
Yeah, it would be trapped. So yeah, before that's why, we're just trying to keep track of things. So before we were keeping track of if the knight can go here, and now we noticed it changed, we kicked it. And before we noticed the knight had an escape square, but now we noticed it changed. And so if he goes here, we would just win a piece easily. So knowing that, I'm going to go back home so I don't hang a piece.
Right. And so now, what does that do? It um, loses control over some center squares, and it's completely undeveloped. It's not a threat to me anymore. In fact, he doesn't even have any squares to go to right now.
Correct.
Um, so this pawn is doing a really good job. We should defend that as well as we can. And we liked this move anyway. It helps with piece development and control of the center. So that's probably my first candidate move. So let's get rid of the multiple arrows.
Exactly. E4 is definitely your number one candidate move. If you had to pick a second move to make for whatever reason, what would it be?
um, developing another piece. Maybe bringing the bishop out to this diagonal that we said we liked anyway, and now it's hitting that. It's a protected knight, but it does eyeball it.
Yep, which one of these two developing moves is the more natural move to make right now?
We know we want the knight on c3 if we can get it there, and it's available, so we could do that. The bishop move doesn't necessarily come with tempo because it is defended, so it's not necessarily more aggressive.
Exactly. The knight one is definitely more natural. It's definitely more flexible as you can keep the options open for the bishop in the future in case he brings a piece here and you change your mind. But definitely the knights before bishops does make sense here. But let's go with the pawn as that makes the most sense. Opening up the bishop, preparing castling. Okay, so black goes, that's far enough.
Gotcha. Yeah, so it comes out, freezes my pawn, weakens these two squares, although they are still defended by pawns. Does try to take control of these two squares as well. But other than that, no real threat. And maybe, if anything, it weakens the idea of this developing move, as we'd be hitting right into a defended pawn. Um, so a natural move would be to bring the knight out. Uh, so let's kind of leave the more candidate moves. It'd be nice to develop the bishop. We're closer to castling. Our king is maybe in a little danger if the queen were to come out, but we do have options in order
Easy options,
to protect that.
or are these options very easy and convenient, or will they have you do have to contort your entire position?
Um, these are easy, right? Because if, say, our move was to bring out, to anywhere the bishop, and his response is the queen, that move is a move we want to make anyway. This move comes with tempo on the queen. Nothing is hanging, like the queen isn't going to come over and capture a free piece. Um, so I
So,
would say it's pretty easy to um, happily block any kind of queen advancement to a5.
right, so after queen to a5, if you have a knight here and a bishop here, instead of being dangerous, it looks like it's more misplaced than dangerous, right?
Right, the queen is misplaced, and even just encourage the development that we would want to do anyway.
Right. It just like a one move thing, and this diagonal is easily defended. Like even in the worst case scenario, you could lift your queen up for queen trade. Like it's never a danger. But you
Yeah.
obviously don't want to do that. You'd rather develop your pieces. Um, Wait. So which move did you settle on? The knight or the bishop?
I didn't settle. Yeah, so both of those are there. Um, I would say maybe let's do the natural knight development. I think, yeah, I got sidetracked. My king is in really no danger right now, so I don't have to try to just get one move away from castling. Um, I always have time to make a play with the bishop to get to castling later.
Okay, that makes logical sense. So we'll go with the knight. It also happens to block the check, so that's not even a thing. Um, let's see. Black needs to develop. Let's go g6.
Um, all right, it comes out. It eyeballs some squares that he wasn't controlling before. Um, Kind of weakens this square. This one is still defended by a pawn, although it is the h6 square is still defended by a knight. And it looks like maybe the point of that move would be to bring his bishop out. Um, so that's what I notice about it. What does it directly threaten? Nothing. Um, so continuing piece development would probably be my first goal. Um, and so I would say probably working with my kingside bishop. I don't think either of my bishops have. Well, actually, no. Let me take that back. I was going to say neither of my bishops really have a ideal square right now, but I think for my queenside bishop, this is the ideal square. It's a nice long diagonal. Um, Not going to be coming under attack anytime soon, um, and that may be getting further out here. I'm just going to be getting pushed around by pawns and trying to go into an established. Wiggling my cursor around doesn't help, but this is pretty strong. So getting my bishop out here doesn't look like it comes with a lot of threat. So it looks like this is um, the best square to develop that bishop to. And then whereas on the king side, I don't know if I necessarily either of these currently are looking into pawns. That one's right out. Because it's defended. Um, so I'm probably less certain of where I would want to put the light squared bishop. So I would say that would be my first candidate move.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. In all positions, there's this idea that I've kind of come across where when my opponent makes a certain move, there's a certain response like that I have in my mind, and I try to apply it to a bunch of positions. So, for example, whenever my opponent moves this queen's bishop, wherever that may be, I'm always looking at the respective response, which for me in lots of positions, I look at queen b6. So the second that bishop moves, I'm considering can I play queen out because it automatically undefends the pawn. And just the way the geometry of the chessboard works, queen b6 would be like the move to take advantage of it somehow. Um,
Right.
and vice versa. If he moves his somewhere, wherever, I'm automatically thinking, oh, the corresponding move to that queen is the queen b3 geometrically. So, and there's lots of different moves like that, like connections that you can find. This is one of them that I've found. Um, so anytime you're thinking of moving this, just always look at your opponent's response and see can he hurt me with that move. So in this case he can't, but that's just something that you can apply to every single position. It's super useful. So we'll move the bishop out, and I'll feint kiddo.
All right. So he's done what he wanted to there. It's a nice looking bishop. Not blocked by any of his pawns, not currently blocked by any of my pawns. Um, it does see my knight, which is defended. And um, he's unlikely to want to trade. Often a fianchettoed bishop is there on purpose. It wants to be there and be strong. So it's not usually a one move threat to go capture whatever it can see. So those are my thoughts there. Um, in response, I can continue development towards castling. But something that I see when he moved his bishop is if I move my dark squared bishop and line up on it, it's defended. It's attacking what he just moved. His bishop is undefended, and behind it is a juicy rook. So that might be a candidate move to get him. Let me just put that one move on the board to get him to relinquish his fianchetto bishop. I guess it's also defended with the knight, isn't it? So it's got a couple options.
So if you have to give me two candidate moves, what would they be?
Yeah, I like this, and um, yeah, again, maybe not. And even in looking at this, I would say probably just a subtle light square bishop development to enable castling.
So how are you going to weigh the option between bringing out a new piece and preparing castling or moving the same piece twice?
Yeah, so the general thought, don't move the same piece twice unless there's a really good reason. Um, and I don't know, I don't appear to be in any particular king danger. Um, so I can weigh that. I don't simply need to follow by rote, developing castle if he's not putting my king in any danger at all. So I think I like the attack on his really his best piece, right? It's the only developed piece. Everything else is on the back rank. So I think, yeah, my primary candidate move would be the dark square bishop.
Okay, so let's assume we want to make that move. We have to consider before we make it
Uh,
what?
what are his responses? It is an undefended bishop. However, there might be a real simple move that he wants to make anyway to get out there. And now that's attacking my bishop. Um, I do have a response. What else? What else might he do if I put
Well,
my bishop out?
before we skip, is that a good let's say he goes here,
Oh, right.
oops, here, here, here. Is this good for white or good for black?
It's probably better for black because it got rid of my strong presence with that pawn on d5. Um, so even if,
You
and
can
then he doesn't even have to take it right away. He can grab this and do a trade, and then he's got a few options of the way. It even helps his development come out. So it looks like black would be interested in this position more than white would be.
but so when we go back here, white does have this strong pawn, right? Before he makes his move.
Yeah.
But once he makes it, you said that he gets rid of our strong d5 pawn, but he's not getting rid of anything. We just took his pawn for
Right.
free and put our piece here. In the meantime, not only are we creating this threat, but we're also creating this threat. So he doesn't have time to react to both. And if he takes
Okay.
us, we have the option of taking
We
with the queen, threatening the rook. Again, doesn't have time for both. So although you're looking at positional things like, oh, he can develop this, which is true. You don't want to help him develop like that. But just tactically speaking, he has stuff hanging, so he has to really address that right now.
right.
So in a position like this,
Interesting.
what would like just what might you do as black, or what do you think he would do?
Yeah, so the candidates are, this is under threat, which would come with check, which is a nice thing to remember.
Right.
Um, Even, and I hadn't thought it all the way through. If he takes and then we recapture, we are still hitting the knight or the hitting the rook. Um, so then he's still continuing to have to respond to all of our moves.
Exactly.
Um,
And this is Puzzle Rush right here. This is exactly why I recommend Puzzle Rush because once you can see these things a little clearer in your head, um, I mean, that's where you just lose or win a game. Like your opponent will either blunder this or you'll blunder it, and the points will go one way or the other. And it's just little tactics like, okay, so let's say it's his turn and he goes here. Now all you have to think is, okay, what would my response be? En passant and then take the bishop. So it's like a two-move sequence. He goes, you go, and then he goes, you go. And then you can stop there and say, oh, I'm winning. You don't have to calculate further. So it's like little
right.
two move sequences. Nothing crazy, not 4 or 5 moves. Just the little 1, 2 moves are important. But we're not going to go and make that move that you considered. I'm going to make this move and develop instead, which is a much more natural response by black.
Gotcha. Right. Blocks my threat on his bishop, naturally develops a piece where I'd like to go anyway, um, and does hit what is currently a backward pawn, even though it is defended. So, what do I want to do with this? Um, I guess we'll do that same question. Anytime you have a chance to try to kick a knight, you do it. He can obviously retake, but then I can retake with the bishop. Um,
It's not you do
although
it,
then
it's you consider it. You consider it.
I I consider it.
Okay, yeah.
What is the threat if I make that recapture with the bishop? I'm hitting the knight again, but again, it's with a piece. And so I'm probably not going to be happy with taking his knight and getting it recaptured one of two ways. Um, so unwind that a little bit. If I go and he takes this way, um, I can recapture, but it doesn't come with a really big threat. Um, and I guess ultimately the initial move was say we try to kick the knight, and it turns out we don't kick the knight
Right.
if
That's
we push.
that's quite a hard move to explain, to evaluate, to give you any information that would help you to decide. The only thing I could tell you about this that would make sense in your games and would help you is if you assuming you had a pawn on f4, then we definitely want to push on this turn
Right.
because if he takes back and we take back, then we have that pawn duo. Now in that line, you have to calculate if you can take this or if you have tactics, blah blah blah. But the moral of the story is if you have the pawn here, we definitely want to do it. But because we don't, and we're left with this one pawn, it's still a strong position for white. But I don't know how to explain. I don't know how to justify this to you in a way that's going to make sense. So we're not going to make this move. And if we're not making this move because let's say we're unsure of exactly what we benefit from it, what else are we going to do as white? How else do you think?
Yeah, we have one last piece to develop in order to enable castling, and we've got three candidate squares for it. Um, let's see. I'm trying to think. Maybe the most natural move for the knight that he has out, although I'm sure he's going to be thinking about castling another piece development first. But he has an option to come in here, so maybe E2 is my best. Um, oh, E2 would be good to do that so I could get a threat on the knight. It's defended by this, and indeed his more primary move to develop might be there and to pin the knight to the queen. So yet another reason to bring this to be my next move.
If it was black's turn right now and black brings his knight here, what's white's best move?
Right now, everything is protected. So maybe try to kick it because it's a piece on our side, or if there's another awesome looking move, make that move because that doesn't really come with a threat, an immediate threat.
What's the drawback of the knight
Oh,
moving?
there's another drawback to the knight moving.
There we go.
Is
Okay.
that yeah, the dark squared bishop?
All right. So yeah, we're not worried about this until he castles. And then even when he castles, we're still not worried about it because that's not a threat. And you can just go boop and he's gone. And there was no point to his move at all. As far as the bishop coming here, are we afraid of that or do we think it's dangerous or useless?
Yeah, probably the same thing from our last lesson. Anytime you pin a piece that's defended by a pawn, it's not a strong pin, and if it can be your piece can be attacked by one of their pawns, and it's easily removed. So that was that 0 out of 10 pin strength you were talking about.
Yeah, it loses on all three criteria. First of all, the pin piece defended by a pawn. Second of all, you can't add immediate pressure with any other pieces. And third, the pin is broken easily and immediately. So, not a thing. So, you see, that's just such an easy way to see how if it's good or not, and it applies in all the positions, so it's a shortcut. Um, what else? Okay, so who just moved? Black or white? Let me see. Okay,
Black
oops.
just moved
Black moved here,
right out.
and you said bishop here. Okay, this is a decent move. If you did move it to d3, I wouldn't say you made a huge mistake or anything. Although e2 probably makes a little more sense. Hard to say. The one square you don't want to go to is c4 because that's easily walking into a tempo for no reason.
Right.
Um, the one drawback of e2 as opposed to d3 is slightly less support for this pawn depending on what you want to do with it. However, these are both playable moves, and we're going to stick with yours because I like it. So black's going to go and castle, normal enough.
Yeah, king safety. It doesn't threaten anything right away. It doesn't weaken anything for me to try to go attack. Um, and my last move was with the thought of castling, so I'm probably considering my best move is to castle.
Okay, cool. That makes a lot of sense. And do you think white's better in this position or black's better?
There's a lot of similarity. We're a little bit more developed, and we've got two pawns in the center, and they have zero. So I would say white's better.
Yes, white's definitely better. There's similarity, but there's differences, such as we have all four of our minor pieces. He still has two at home, and then the center on top of that. So definitely white's better. Um, and a lot of times, if you're not sure, you could just say, well, which color would I rather be? And
Right.
I would much rather be white. So they're probably better. Um, okay. So I'm black. Need to get some pieces out. Let's go here.
Gotcha. Yeah, so we just talked about this. It's not even a pin. It's easily kicked out by a pawn. The piece that it's attacking is defended by a pawn. Um, so what does it threaten? A well-developed, well-defended piece. I can probably either ignore it or choose to kick it because we don't like pieces on our side of the board. So we could do an H3 move.
Okay. I do like h3, and if we're not going to play h3, what would be another candidate move?
Yeah, something with our queen to connect our rooks is a kind of a last bit of um, development. We could start to develop our rooks before connecting, since again, there doesn't look like anything is right away going to come on them. We do have a completely open file, so rook A to C1 gives us good visibility.
Excellent. Okay, so the two moves I would think is kicking the bishop and definitely rook to c1. So the rook is obviously best placed here where there are no boulders in its way. Open file. The queen, I do like developing it. I don't like going to c2 just because you know he's going to put a rook here. You don't want your queen in that alignment.
Gotcha.
So and same for him. The second you see him make a move like this, you should be very happy because you know your rook's
Right.
going here in the future. So we're gonna make the move, and he says, "Okay, I don't really have space for my pieces. I'm kind of cramped, so I'm gonna trade."
Gotcha. We knew that that was an option that he would do. The strongest recapture, let me make sure I'm not. What immediately looks to me as the strongest recapture is using my bishop being my king defended. Um, and doesn't look like there's another strong choice. So that would be my move is bishop recapture.
Right. Definitely take with the bishop. If you had to, for whatever reason, make an argument for taking this way, what would be the one good thing about capturing this way?
It defends the pawn on e4 with a pawn, so a nice strong pawn chain. And my weakness at the base of my pawn chain can be replaced by another pawn.
Yeah, so it would defend your beautiful center with a pawn, which means that any piece pressure is irrelevant, and it would free up your pieces from defense. So that would be a benefit, but it's definitely not worth it. But it's important to notice these things because when you do eventually make exceptions to double your pawns, these are the reasons. It's going to be this reason and then two or three other reasons combined. Okay, so we take back, and black says, "Well, I have one piece I need to move. Let's move it."
All right. Yeah, and he couldn't bring it out to the most natural square because of our awesome D pawn. Um, it's not really threatening anything. Its forward moves are defended by our bishop. Um, so yeah, now we want to start looking at our side. We don't have a particular capture that's looking great. So how do we improve our position? We talked about having a really nice move. So probably my first idea is the rook to the open file. Um, or if connecting the rooks, we don't want to put the queen to c2. so it could move up in the D file or even go to E, get some good visibility out. But I think the strongest move is the moving the rook.
Okay, I like that move a lot. Um, you see, just something I'm briefly mentioning is you know how you put your bishop here when it was here? I mean, I played that move because it's, it is a playable move, but more commonly, the bishop would still be here, and you would also have ideas of creating this battery. Um,
Right.
Not that that's necessary, I'm just saying, like, it's just more normally where the bishop would be, although this square is also a good square. That's why we went for it, but ideally, if we could choose, we would want a knight there. We would like a knight there, just because it sits really nice in the cubbyhole. But if you're challenging his bishop, then that's totally valid, and that's why it's also playable. I just want you to be aware of different options, so you can try different things in your games.
Cool.
Okay, so let's move the rook over, and black says, you know what? Enough of this.
Okay, so pushes the pawn to h5. That does a nice job of gaining some space over there, and maybe having some control over g4. Um, no immediate threat with that, and it does weaken g5. Um, what else?
Do you think
Um,
it's a good move, a bad move?
I wouldn't do that as black. Just it doesn't come with an immediate threat. It's not protecting against any threat that I was doing, and it's a pawn in front of his king. So I think you'd have to have a much better reason than he currently has to make that move.
So are we gonna throw it in the bucket of pretty poor move?
Yeah, it looks like he's got all sorts of stuff. He wants to get over on the contested open file right now, so he has, I think, a series of better moves that he could make.
Yes, of course he does. It's a complete waste of time. His pieces aren't in the game, and there's no point to that move at all. So you don't need to like tiptoe around it. You could just be like, "Oh, that move is a complete waste of time." If that's how you what you think of it. Um, okay, so he does this, but then how do you respond to a complete waste of time?
Yeah. So what I have done if I had an opportunity to make another move last turn, if I could have made two turns in a row, since this doesn't disrupt anything that we had going on. Um, we had talked about the concept of a battery, so we could start going in that direction. Um, what else?
Well, we don't backtrack. I was just showing you different ideas for a new game, not for this game, because
Right. Okay. Gotcha.
since you already committed, we're gonna we don't want to waste turns changing the setup.
Gotcha.
Unless we
Um,
needed to for some reason or it was clearly good. But here your bishop's already challenging it, so there's no point really.
um, I guess another option is we have our whatever we want to do with our queen to connect our rooks, or even bringing this rook over. It's not doing a lot behind our f pawn, um, so activating that rook would be another candidate move. So yeah, so candidate move one, rook f to e1, candidate move two. Since we like where our pieces are and they don't have any really great forward position to go, would be um, I don't know, if we keep the queen on the D file, it's still protect. It's the only protector of our bishop right now, so we don't lose that protection.
Have you completed development?
Um,
It's
I
not
guess
it's not a trick
it's a
question.
good. Yeah, it's a good definition of what does complete. We want to move all of your pieces. So This is semi-developed because it's part of the castling, but that's really king safety. So bringing the rook over is good. Developing the queen is part of development because it does connect our rooks, which lets them defend one another. So I guess that's what I was looking at those two candidate moves.
Okay, so we'll change the definition of development to make it super easy because it's not about moving each piece once at all. Your rook could
Okay,
be because your rook could be developed without ever having it moved on the H file. If you just recapture with the pawn and it's open, it's developed, you know. So we're gonna change the definition to do all of your pieces have a job? Do all of your pieces have a function? So right now, your rook clearly doesn't have a job, doesn't have a function.
right,
So that's why we need to move it. Not so we can say we moved it, because if this pawn wasn't here, then it would definitely have a function on the semi-open F file.
right,
So it's just about function. So we didn't move the queen, but you can argue, hey, it still has some scope, still doing a decent job. Maybe we don't need to prioritize it over the rook because it has some function. So we're going to look at development as far as usefulness. Um, so how useful is this rook? Not very useful. Um, maybe you think it comes to your mind, oh, maybe I want to double since this is the only open file. Or like you said, maybe I want to support the center. Both of those make sense, but don't try to overcomplicate things. Just be like, okay, I didn't get all my pieces out. They all need to be put to work. Let me move one of these.
gotcha.
So you get to choose which piece and which square you like.
Let's bring our least impactful piece and give it a better job.
Exactly. And what's weird is, I mean, this isn't going on in your head. It goes on in mine, which is weird. But when you make this move, it controls a whole new set of squares, whole new possibilities. It's like whatever formula the engine's using to calculate things, the mathematical value just changed in your favor. You're like your position got more powerful mathematically speaking. It's a weird thing, but anyway, Black's gonna go. Um, what's he gonna do? He's kind of toast.
All right. Yeah, since he doesn't have a lot going on, why not start a press? That's not really going after any of my pieces, certainly not on the king side. So I'd say that's um, maybe not a garbage move. It does maybe give some different options to his rook. Uh, but we thought his rook would look pretty good on the C file anyway. So um, I'll be bold. You've told me to say it if I mean it. I would say that that's a no good move. I can basically ignore it. What happens if that just continues to march down the A file? It doesn't look like it has much of a future. Um,
Okay, so you make lots of observations, which is really good. But I want to test something. Let's
okay,
let's not make you only have 2 seconds to answer my question, okay?
okay.
What does this move threaten?
Um,
One,
it
two.
it 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 threatens nothing.
Okay, done. Okay, now you have 3 seconds to answer my next question. What's the drawback of this move?
It's weakened a square. It also no longer can be moved to. Oh wait, was he already on six? He was already on six, wasn't he? Right. Sorry. So yeah. So it weakens this. It gives a really nice square for our knight.
Exactly. So making the observations is good, and you definitely want to do that. But you want to try to actually use the questions themselves to laser focus all those thoughts into something useful. Because you can
Right.
say everything in the position that you notice. It did
Right.
this, it did this, it did this, but it has to somehow guide you to something. So if you actually say, "What does this threaten?" then your observations will come together in that to answer that question. And what's the drawback? Then it'll be easier to notice the most important thing, which is the new access for your knight, which you didn't have a second ago, and was a positional mistake on Black's part.
Right.
So I'm not telling. The whole point of that wasn't to get you to to do it quick. Like you definitely don't want to be forcing things. That was just an experiment to see that you can definitely come to the right answer without noticing every little thing in the position. But what you're doing is correct. You do want to notice that stuff. Um, okay, so I forgot what you said about your move.
Yeah, it weakened this square, which is now a really nice spot for my knight because, and the kind of thing we didn't mention is there's no c pawn even to come out and kick it, so nothing's moving that knight except for another piece. So that's a good spot to drop a knight.
And what do we call that square in chess? What's the terminology for oops, not that, for these two red squares?
Um, so it sounds like maybe you want me to say it's an outpost. I thought of those as maybe they also need to be defended already, or is it just if a pawn can't move a piece, that's an outpost? That's how we
Oh,
think
I
of it.
see, I see. Okay, yeah, definitely I was looking for outposts, but I see what you mean because there's no pawn defending. I still consider them outposts. I think that technically they are still considered outposts.
Yeah,
That's what you need, how you need to think of them. If they cannot be kicked by a pawn, it's an outpost. Now, obviously, it's better if it's also defended by a pawn, but you don't need that. You can easily stick a
right.
piece somewhere, like a knight here defended by a bishop. It doesn't matter that you don't have a pawn. It's still a super powerful square. So you want to notice all outposts. If you're not, if for some reason you don't like that word, you can just say weak square. In chess, they have different meanings though, so it could mix you up. In any case, do you want to put your knight there, or do you want to make a different move?
Um, I like putting the knight there. I don't see another. I don't see any of my pieces under threat or a better move to make.
Okay, I like this move. It's useful. The one thing I would say is how do we weigh a move like that over, I don't know, let's say lifting the rook with the intention of doubling.
Yeah, I guess my initial thought is go back to that checks, captures, and threats. I don't have a check in the position. I don't have a capture. Moving anything right now isn't that rook lift isn't an immediate threat. And I would say so. Then those just fall back to positional improvement. My knight, while maybe doing a nice job of protecting some pawns, it's not doing a lot where it's at. So we've got good piece development. Let's start moving the army forward so we can do better threats.
Okay, they're both playable moves. We'll go with your move. And do you think white's a lot better here? A little better?
Yeah, it looks a lot better. Just a little bit like cheating wise. We've talked about the moves that Black has made. They've done some nothing moves. So that's obviously going to be weakening of your position when your opponent isn't. Like when I have my coach telling me good moves to make as we go along. Um, but yeah, so we've got again, we still have the strong center. We've got our rooks developed. He hasn't moved his rooks, although technically, is this where you'd say like his rook on the A file is semi-developed because it does he's moved his pawn forward, so he does have some visibility. But I would say his F rook is not doing a ton. We've got better piece development and better control of the center, so much rather be white.
Yeah, white's doing a lot better. And instead of coach, I prefer helper.
Helper.
I'm just a helper. I'm part of the support crew. Okay, so yeah, white's obviously doing great. I mean, black has some nice looking potential pieces, but he's clearly cramped, and these pawns are don't belong there really. Although h5 is fine, it's just a waste of time when you have such a bad position. Anyway, black's gonna go here to develop.
Gotcha. That now challenges the C file. It's looking right at my rook. My rook is defended, um, but that's the immediate threat that is has brought. Um, yeah. So what do I want to do about that? A lot of options is don't think defensively. Don't think about defending that rook. It's already defended. If I need to try to if I thought that rook I already had a plan for it, like on the king side, I might do a move, which would obstruct. that rook's view if the whole plan was to get it going somewhere else. But I don't have that in my head right now. Um, so I would say I can probably safely ignore that. I either could take and bring his queen over, but now I don't really have much of an answer for that. Maybe let him waste the tempo taking my piece, and then when I retake, I'm on the file. So what are my other options?
So we're just going to use
Um,
just a clear questioning process. So the first thing is going to be, does this threaten anything? What's the idea? What's the threat?
yeah, so it threatens my rook on c1.
But that's not a threat, right? That's just a trade.
Right, correct. That's just a trade. So it threatens nothing.
Right. So if it threatens nothing, and then we go to the second question, is there an obvious and clear drawback to the move?
It doesn't look like there's a clear drawback to the move.
Right. So if he's not threatening anything, meaning we don't care, and if we don't have a way to take advantage of it, which means we don't need to
Right.
think about that, then we can just continue building up our position. So super simple line of thinking. And so because he's not threatening anything and we can't, take advantage of that move, then we can just continue increasing the power of our position. So how would we go about doing that?
Um, yeah, there is still just the one open file, and there's not even another semi-open file. So it looks like this is the C file is where the battle's being played right now. Um, any kind of an option to do a lift to double, um, particularly at present, he's defending his rook with his queen. So two rooks means we win a queen in that instance. Um,
Yeah, basically any of these moves, even if you were to develop the queen and connect the rooks, like anything, if you were to, I like your move a lot, trying to double here, this all increases the power of your position. Um, a move like a king move or a pawn move, these would not. But increasing the value, the usefulness of this rook has to increase the usefulness of your position. Um,
right,
this knight's very useful, this bishop's very useful. This bishop may look dumb, but it has a very useful function considering we want to move this rook anyway. This pawn needs to stay defended so your position doesn't collapse.
right.
Um, so where would you move one of these?
Um, yeah. So I in my mind, see less value in bringing the queen out. I guess I. So yeah, this is where probably I start to break down. This is where the weakest part of my game is. So I said something that sounded kind of clever, like, "Oh, the battle seems to be being fought on the C file," but still, I think his king's over here. So is my queen over here poorly placed? But if the battle is on here, maybe it's not. Um, and right now, the queen is the only thing, well, not even the only thing defending it anymore, but it's also there's no real threat at it. Um, so
Well, one thing to pay attention to is his king, where it is or isn't, doesn't matter unless it's weak.
right,
If it
okay,
if it's not weak, it doesn't matter where it is on the board.
right,
We're definitely, if it's not weak, we're not attacking it. By definition, if it's not weak, you're making a mistake by attacking his strong, well-defended king, right? So we don't
right,
we don't want to do that. We want to attack the weaknesses. If that means we got to go for this a5 pawn, I don't really care about his king because I know once
right,
once I win this pawn, I'm winning the game. To me, winning this pawn is checkmate, right? So the higher rated you get, the more your win condition changes from literal checkmate to I win these two squares and therefore I win the game.
right,
Right? That's how I'm thinking. I see White's position and I already won the game in my mind, so I don't really care about actual checkmate. Now if he happens to do something dumb and his king is super weak, then yeah, maybe I'll go checkmate him, but that's only you need help from your opponent for that. You can't just
right,
force checkmate upon upon your opponent because you're the conqueror of chess. That doesn't work.
right.
Although I've tried it plenty of times, so Okay, so
Um,
let's not move the queen. I agree it has vague value. I can see why. I was just pointing out that if you move your queen anywhere, it connects the rooks. But yes,
right.
obviously doubling or tripling is a much better idea.
Yeah. So I guess with the concept of tripling, bringing us up further here, and then we could get the queen immediately in fewer moves, or can I just get rid of one? I can't. So if we were to do this, even then in four moves, you could get kind of that two rooks in front, more sacrificial. Um, but at any rate, in order to triple this up, we need a piece on the third rank. So I would say my primary candidate move is here.
Perfect. And we don't even need to necessarily triple. That's only if he defended enough times. But he's kind of
Right.
cramped. He can't double his rooks, so he's going to have a hard time defending. Okay, so you go here, and he's going to go here.
That doesn't do anything.
There we go.
2 second answer. If anything, it's hanging. The queen could take it, so it's definitely a bad move.
Be careful.
Um, be careful.
No, you're
Oh,
right.
right. Yeah.
It is definitely a bad move, but
Yeah.
no, it's a waste of time. It's hang. It's a
Correct.
terrible move. But be careful with
Right.
taking the pawns because
Yeah.
you
If
don't
we
want to
do
move those.
that, then he comes dropping down here even.
Yeah, it's
What's
not.
defending
I mean,
the
your
the rook?
position's still good, but you don't want to let his position into. You don't want his rook to go from here to a2. Um,
Right.
all of a sudden. So and not for a pawn that he can't defend because your knight's in the way. So for all
Yeah.
intents and purposes, this pawn is doomed for the rest of the game. You could just leave it there.
Yeah.
But
Um,
yeah. What's a stronger move from white?
Strong move for us would be to double this up now because his rook is only defended by his highest valued piece, and we could that doubling of the rooks is a strong thing to do on the open file, especially when you're attacking a piece.
And once we double, now that we're doubled, what square did we just take control of? That's important. Full
What
control.
square did we take control? Full control.
Right.
Um, I guess including with our knight's visibility into c7 and getting pieces our queen or rooks onto the seventh rank is ideal because it helps cut the king off. Um, I guess that's what I'm seeing.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we put this rook here, we were disputing this square. We couldn't place something there. We couldn't put a knight there or anything. Now we can put whatever we want there. And that's a big
Right.
problem for him because if you do end up with a rook here, it's not so much his king will be cut off as in chess, you start with 8 units on this row. And because of how chess works, there's usually a lot of them left. In this case, there's 5 units still there when a rook gets here. That means you have a ton of pressure on his position. If he moves one thing, you're x-raying the thing behind it. And then there's the king being cut off on top of that. So it's just super annoying. And that's with the rook. If you get a knight here, you're automatically blocking the usefulness of his pieces. And who knows what tactics will arise and what you can build up behind that. It's just a super dominating concept for white to control this square. Um, so black's like, okay, this is not good. Let me trade.
Gotcha. We have four options there. I would say the first one I would think about was we still want to control the file, so we would capture with the rook and not with the minor pieces or the pawn.
Right. What do you think of capturing with the pawn?
It blocks our view that our rook had. It does defend the bishop, but when that pawn goes there, and all of a sudden his queen has the ability to come over because it's not a contested file anymore, or even clear itself out in some way uh, and let his rook come over, which might be even better.
Right. It's you definitely don't want to do it. I'm just asking as like a bait.
Yeah,
I mean, why would you close your rook in coordination with the knight? That would be really sad and upsetting after you made such a nice position. Like if this was an OTB game and you took back this way, I'd be like, oh no. But
right.
I mean, obviously, you'd still be much better there, just to be clear. But still, it's like a chess crime. So you take back this way, and
Well, he had a perfectly safe king. I don't know if it's more or less safe now, but it's certainly not. It was an unnecessary move.
correct.
Um, so, candidate moves that we have, we can just ignore it and go back to what we wanted to do. We're having all sorts of fun on the C file. So, the rook infiltration is good, or one of the queen moves to get in alignment. Um, but nothing is attacking this rook, and nothing will anytime soon. So that probably doesn't need to be our focus.
I like those moves. Always keep in mind this pawn is still hanging, and there's no more rook option since it's not there. However, for the purposes of trying to be a stronger player, we're going to forego the material and try to get a more dominating position by infiltrating the rook. Does that make sense?
Yeah, there's it's
Because
not a that pawn isn't a particularly important pawn. I can always go get it at some point later. Why delay my attack? It looks like we've been building momentum here, and he's been sacrificing, or not sacrificing, but trading pieces and giving us the file. Let's keep the pressure up on that.
right, and if you look at this pawn, if we look at it in a different way, this pawn's usefulness is that it controls this square. So sure, when you
Right?
capture that pawn, you remove that amount of usefulness for your opponent permanently. But if you look at the usefulness of your rook, the difference between this square and this square, you could
It's
say that
huge.
the rook is
Yeah.
even more useful than what you would be taking away by taking the pawn if you
Yeah.
traded it. Now, I'm not saying that's verified by engine or anything. I'm just trying to give you
Right.
like the concept of why I would not take material and build up my position like this. Um, so anyway, you go in here, which is super annoying because I don't have a rook. I have a queen here. Um, okay, I gotta move this knight.
Cool. So that immediately attacks my rook. So even though the rook is defended, he'd be interested in that trade. Um, so I guess still keeping it on the seventh rank, I can gain a pawn, which really weakens everything over here for him. I'm trying to think on the option of like, since he takes and I take, and then he recaptures, is there a way to like get the two pieces for the rook and that kind of thought? But that doesn't appear to be lining up. Oh, hey, you know what else? We were talking about this, but it was like 20 moves ago. Is that opened up and weakened his um, bishop, and that comes with check. So my rook is safe even when I make that move.
Okay, so you made again lots of observations. Now we're gonna organize it by
Right.
what does this move threaten?
This move threatens my rook.
And anything else? And you could say no.
I don't think so.
Right. Right. It threatens the rook. It offers a bishop trade, which is not a threat. Right.
Right.
Now, does it have any obvious and clear drawbacks?
So the drawback is it was blocking the bishop's my bishop's view of his fianchettoed bishop, um, and so that's available. However, I guess it's just a trade, so I don't even need to be overly excited that that's weak.
Right. I mean, your bishop can stay where it is. It's defended. So it's not a threat. So we've determined there's no obvious drawback, but there is an obvious threat, which means we can't build up our position. We have to respond to the threat. So that makes our life easy because we only have so many moves to choose from. So now it's almost like a mental flow chart that keeps everything super simple. So what do you do here?
Right. I guess my initial thought is I need to get my rook out of danger, and I can do that without weakening its. Well, does it? I would say yeah. So I guess it maintains its power on the seventh rank, but now I no longer control the C file. But I do have to move it somewhere. So I guess another option would be to just bring it back somewhere. Um, and then that way, but I lose the rank utility while maintaining the file utility. I would say initial response would be to take this, keep it up on the seventh rank where we like it, and also gaining control over some squares that we would, or not really controlling this one, but he loses control, and then we do fully control this with our pawn.
Right. Now you were saying how we leave the C file, which is important to notice, but then you also have to weigh it. Is that significant? And when we determine that his rook is here, blocked by his own
Yeah,
pieces and can't actually take control of it, then we see it's not significant, right?
right,
So let's take this pawn, and one thing that I didn't hear you mention, but we generally would consider is this a safe square for the rook? The reason I say that is because my knight's in the way. So I wonder, well, if the queen hits it, let's just say, can I escape or is it trapped? Now in this case, you do have this one square to get it out of danger, but it's something you want to look at before you make the move for sure.
right. Not only is it safe now because that square isn't being attacked, but also what is black's most likely response, and can it trap it?
Right. I mean, as soon as I see this knight here, my brain thinks, wait, it looks restricted. So then I start looking for ways to trap my own rook as black. But
Right,
if this knight wasn't here, I would automatically assume I have escape squares. I wouldn't even look at a move like this because it just seems ridiculous without calculation. Um, but when I see my knight so close and this covers this, all of a sudden I'm like, wait a second, let me calculate for 10 seconds. So, okay, so that's fine. Let's go.
gotcha. So yeah, you took that trade. We have a couple of options to recapture. Um, I guess my initial thought would be with the queen because it is going to control the same scores that the bishop did, and then some, and then also it comes with check. Um, the other thought, though, with your previous comment, was recapturing with the knight does give my rook more room to flee in the future, but I don't think that benefit outweighs retaking with check.
Okay, so assuming we take with the queen and we give this check, is it a significant check? Is it a useless check? How do you feel?
Um, it's easily avoided. It can be blocked with a couple, I guess, 4 or 5 different moves. But what it does do is it gives us tempo. So we get to take that. He has to react, and then we get to continue.
So, what do you think Black's best response would be to the check? How is he going to block it?
Um, we go back like to beginning of the game. He could bring pawn to e5, which attacks and it's defended. I can then recapture with en passant,
And
and then even if
that's,
he, and then that's back into check
yep.
for the king.
So that's probably not a good response for Black.
So then the other option could be f6. And then he's got 3 different knight moves to go through, but probably isn't interested in pinning his knight unless he has to. So probably the strongest, I would say, f6.
Now f6 does keep his position super solid, stopping this pawn break, stopping any diagonal pressure, kind of just keeping a bunch of protection around his king. But what looks like the most natural move to you? And maybe it is f6. Just let me know if that's what looks the most natural. Like what
Yeah,
would
as maybe a natural move would be a king move. If you bring it back to g8, it's kind of nice and nestled. But even bringing it forward to h7 gives defense to the g6 pawn in case he wants to start pushing that f pawn. So maybe one of the king moves. But I would say of those three, I'm not certain what the best move would be.
Right, right, right. Okay. How does this move look to you, out of curiosity? 95.
Yeah, so the knight comes forward. It's defended. Nothing. I don't really have pieces that I'd want to sacrifice for it. Although, let me look at material. We are up one, two, three, four, five, six, seven. So we're up one pawn. Um, so we could do an exchange with that, but nothing is attacking it right now. And I don't even have a dark squared bishop to attack it with. Um, it's almost an outpost. I'd have to move my bishop and then throw my f pawn forward to kick it.
Exactly. So this looks very good and natural, but the
Oh,
easy response from white is because there's this pin, you can just drop your bishop back one and then kick it with f4 next, and that's big problems for black. But without that, this would be an excellent square where he wants to keep it. It's just not a stable square, unfortunately.
yeah.
So the queen you could take with because of everything we just discussed. The knight does get to go to the best square after it recaptures, which would be kind of nice. So I wouldn't mind if you said that either. However, we're going to stick with your queen move, even if I might have taken with the knight. I'm not sure. In any case, black is kind of cramped, so well, this is no fun. Oh, I'm in check. I forgot all about that.
Oh, right. Good thing the board reminds you.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, he got his king out of check. It doesn't threaten anything of mine. Is there an obvious drawback? Um, no, it's still pretty safe. It doesn't look like I've got pieces lined up to go right after his king. Um, so onward with my attack.
Well,
Um,
don't think in terms of attack. Think
oh,
in terms of
gotcha.
just improving position.
Improving the position. Um, my Yeah, I don't have an immediate check. That's a value. I can't do a capture. It would be a inferior trade for me to get that knight on d7 with my rook. Um,
Is anything hanging
can
from you?
I? We do have our friendly a4 pawn
Okay.
still
As long as you notice it, it's fine.
looking out there. Um,
What's our worst place
yeah.
piece?
Um,
What's our least useful piece that's not doing a job?
yeah. So at least I would say either the bishop. I mean, it is still doing the defense here, but the queen's there, and it could easily be replaced by a pawn, and it doesn't have a lot of visibility. It's not doing a lot of work. Um, but any he only has two viable moves right now, um, and those don't necessarily improve. I guess we could swing it back and have that be the piece that captures, and then it could be over here looking at his army.
Right. So position strategically speaking, we want this bishop to be on this diagonal, or if yeah, I mean basically that diagonal because he has a bunch of units there. So
Right.
it would be clearly improved than where it is now. Before it had the job of defending the pawn when it had to because of the pressure and there were no other pieces. Now that's not the case. The queen's here. After you drop it back, you have f3, easy days. But do you have a more forcing move? So let's say we don't want to capture, right? Let's say we still want to ramp up the pressure. Can we
Right.
make a move that creates a threat,
Um,
a big
Yeah,
threat?
there's this a big threat. Yeah, no, not a big threat. So a big threat. Big threats often come on. I mean, so I guess a thought would be bring the knight in to attack the knight, but he could capture because my defense is no real defense. Um, a rook onto the queen doesn't bring us anything. It just gets recaptured. Um, I guess we could offer a queen trade because it's defended. No, no, bad idea, Mike. That's why we talked through it though. Um,
But just to point a different thing, even if it wasn't hit by the knight, a queen trade isn't beneficial for you. It's beneficial for black because he's the one cramped and in trouble. So queen trade can only relieve the pressure for him.
gotcha. I guess a little minor threat I was looking at is the pawn forward makes him do something. I guess it doesn't. Yeah,
Okay,
it makes him do something to free that up because that's a nice looking diagonal for me.
well, we really want to, I mean, we don't, if we look at these pawns, we're kind of like, we don't really want to move them because they don't seem like they're that strong. They don't have that much effect. And okay, so the move that I'm thinking of is kind of invisible because your queen looks like it's so well placed. You're not really, you don't want to consider moving it as a human. But if I told
Right.
you you have a square where you can move it and it creates an immediate threat, now you can look easier.
An immediate threat. I guess we could bring it to a7 because now that knight can't be defended adequately.
It can or it can't.
Oh, I guess this move would then redefend the knight
Right. Now what's the
in
problem? What's
response.
the problem there for black? Or like why would that be potentially good for white?
Why would
Queen A
my
Queen
queen move?
A7. Yeah, like why would Queen A7 be a strong move?
Um, I guess I'm just seeing the pressure on that knight.
Right, and the thing is, the real problem is it's X-raying. So even if you ever move the knight, well then the pawn's hanging, right? And then the other pawn,
Okay.
and then if these pawns are gone, you have the checkmate pattern where it goes one, two, three. So all just when you double, it acts like a rook, a pseudo rook. It's like your rooks are doubled, and it just
Mhm.
applies too much pressure to all the units and the checkmate patterns. And he's just tied down and stuck. And for the rest of the game, he'll be trying to defend these squares. And you could just take your sweet time adding pressure. If that means you
Right.
need one turn here, and even just get your knight out of the way to add a third
Right.
attacker, right? Like you, because that's how you see in my games when I say I have a positional bind. These are the best feelings. I love these games. You feel you're in full control. They can't do anything. It's two result games. You either win or you just mess up and draw for some reason. But
Right.
it's such a good feeling because you know black can't do anything. You know that as a human, he's on the other side of the computer, not feeling good emotionally. So I mean, that may sound sadistic or whatever, but it's it's the psychological aspect of chess, and it's a thing. So um, another reason I don't like engines. So he
Right.
goes here. I go here to defend my knight.
Yeah. So again, it did a great job of defending it. Is there a threat? There's no other threat. Um, what does it weaken? Some of the squares that he had visibility on before. Um, and I don't know if this is the next thing, but kind of while we were talking about that, I was like wondering about the weakness of my queen move and thinking as a 900. The idea is, oh, I'm getting so many pieces so far away from my king. But in looking at this position, he's not launching an attack on my king anytime soon. So it's totally fine to do this. So he's defended this, but now what? He still can't move that knight. His queen is still tied down to the defense of the knight. Now this knight is tied down to he can't move any other pieces. So like you said, I can just take my own sweet time going about it. Um,
Right. He literally even without calculation, you say to yourself, okay, hypothetically speaking, how could this reach my king? How could this? And you look and you say, okay, let me go by this circuit, and when you see there's no availability, then you know you're safe.
right. So, I guess, like you said, we want to start bringing some pieces in. Um, we could, I would say, the knight is doing fine. I can't think of a necessarily reason why he would need to try to occupy that square, but we have control over that. Let's first bring in our least impactful piece in the position. Um, and since the knight has to move anyway, I would say maybe bring the bishop all the way back, clean up this pawn on the diagonal that we want to be on, and then eventually move the knight out of the way to get our pressure there.
Beautiful.
So first candidate move here.
Excellent. And I do really like the fact that you are making a lot of observations like, oh, the queen is separated from the king. We don't like it in chess when there's marital problems because you're right. You can get checkmated. They need to support each other to create this strong family so their bishops and knights and other kids can prevail and succeed on the chessboard. But, we also have to use critical thinking, and you did. You determined it's not actually weak, but it's definitely important before you make that queen move to look at that. Like that is exactly where your head should be at. Wait, am I going too far from the king? That should be a question. Um, so yeah, we go here, and this guy's gonna say, well, free pawn. You undefended it.
Right. Um, I missed that.
I know.
it may
That's why I did it.
it may not it may not be a particular problem at the moment, but I did miss that, so I should have known that that was likely to get happen. However, he kind of just did me the favor, right? I was saying he can't move that knight, so in a little bit of a way, I thought it was safe by proxy because now this becomes undefended, and so my rook attack hitting his queen. Um, Without, if he could jump in and do a particularly nasty check, right? He can. That's where his attack could start. But I don't see that coming. So I would have jumped in a game like, what? Oh, I missed that. But then, yeah, try to gather it and say, but what does it weaken? It weakens his defense of the whole piece we were trying to take.
Yep, exactly. And um, when you suggested this move, I figured you had missed this, and I was going to ask, well, what is your response to this? But then I said, you know what? Let me just drop the bomb on him and
Yeah.
see the reaction. And okay, you admitted you missed it. That's funny. But yeah, it's defended by tactics, so we take the knight, of course. And now, okay,
Um, I would just like say thank you, free pawn. Because again, I get to attack a piece that's only defended by the queen. There's no other way to get to that rook or my queen when it comes in. Now, what are you going to do with your queen?
right. And you see how you came to that super quickly? You don't need to
Yeah.
do extensive analysis on every move, just certain moves. So here, when you see the obvious move, the obvious drawback, hang the stuff, you can just make it. Um, okay, you keep chasing my queen. That's annoying. But thankfully, since you don't pay attention to the entire board, I'm going to take your knight.
Oh, that wasn't cool. So he also has a hanging knight, though. So I get to recapture, but
You are
also
so
don't just
lucky.
be.
You are so lucky.
um,
These tactics
Definitely
exist.
lucky. Yeah, I did say, "Ha ha! I got your queen. And what are you going to do with it?" There was a pretty clear answer of what you want to do with it. So yeah, I wouldn't immediately recapture, but I would say that's there. But I do have two major pieces lined up in the neighborhood of his king. This isn't a good recapture because he takes, I take, he takes, so that's no good. Um, let's see. Um, Also, looking at a take with with the queen defending it, um, or even taking with the queen since it's defended. Now that we have our win condition, we've picked up pieces and pawns. Oh, we haven't recaptured down here though.
Yeah, beware
So I would
being
say, yeah,
fancy.
yeah. Um, Consider this sort of stuff. Maybe the queen trade is not best because, again, like you're saying, my queen is better than his queen because his king is under more attack
Well,
We relieve the pressure with that.
you don't get the piece back. If you take his pawn
Right,
and he takes your
right,
queen, then you never got the knight.
right. So yeah, so he just took a piece and then we recapture.
Right. The only reason your blunder isn't a blunder is because you get to take this knight now.
Yeah,
Um, which you lucked out on that one. But that's exactly why I'm saying Puzzle Rush is so important because
right,
this
right.
awareness, this tactical vision, is like if you learn nothing else about positional chess, but your tactics got you could suddenly go from 20 to 35 in Puzzle Rush, your rating is going to shoot
Yeah,
up anyway. Like that's just how it works. But it's hard to see for your brain, but it gets used to it by practicing the puzzles. That's all. Um,
right.
where was I? Okay, so you took the knight, and now I don't know what to do. Go here.
All right. What does it threaten? It makes a nice battery down here. The queen was grabbing that pawn if it wanted it anyway. Um, it's defended in that position, so the queen could recapture. So it isn't threatening anything. What did it weaken? The defense of a really cool square that I'd love to get to. Like I could get my queen there and defended. That would be awesome. Um, what else would we want to do? I don't think I'm too worried about this pawn. If he wants to get more pieces further away from his king, to go after a pawn, my king has a lift. Um,
Okay, so we're gonna use
yeah.
two things. First, zoomed out logic. We're up a minor piece, a bishop. So do we avoid or do we want the queen trade? Do we not
Right.
want it?
Now we would be looking at,
Assuming he offers it to us and we don't have to go out of our way.
yeah, so the queen train would be good for us now because we're up a minor piece. Um, and as it turns out, a pawn. The rook trade would be good. And in fact, the queen is kind of the trickiest remaining piece. So now that I'm up a piece, if I could prioritize finding a way to force a queen trade, I could do that over forcing a rook trade. Um,
All right, so a queen trade would definitely just be like an easy win because you're up a bishop.
right,
But you don't want to go out of your way. Like if there's an easy one, like if you could just move your queen right now and fork them and force it, whatever. But
right,
otherwise, we're not gonna put our queen to a worse square to try to get it. Also,
right.
his king is actually very weak,
Yeah.
so we could attack it. And so, since there's not an easy way to force a queen trade in one turn, is there an easy way to threaten the king in one turn?
Yeah. So if we bring the rook up, then we're threatening to take, and then we can start those checkmating patterns because the queen coming in behind the rook um, is a mating pattern. It would be better if we could lead with the queen, but we don't really have a quick. I guess we could. That's still a move away though, and his back rank is protected. So I'd say maybe the strongest first move to start really reapplying pressure along here would be to come up with the rook.
Right. Now, before we get to the rook move, I just want to mention the queen being in front here only speeds up the mate by one turn. So if assuming
Okay.
your rook is here and your queen is here, queen takes comes with check. So that's one turn and then second turn is mate. But now if we put the rook up, before it took queen took the pawn and the
Yeah.
mate, now it's going to be rook takes the pawn and then it's going to be check, check, mate. Now you may say that's more than one move, but that's all forced. So it counts as one
Right.
move kind of. So moving the rook here, before we move it, we want to consider how can he defend the pawn? Can he defend it easily or is it a problem?
Yeah, he could bring his rook back and defend.
Is that
Um,
the only legal move that defends that pawn?
the any queen move to try to get back. Oh, I guess the queen on the diagonal to no. Then my right. Anytime the queen can come back and defend the pawn immediately, then it's under attack. Either up to b7, my queen takes and it's a trade, or if it goes up to e8 to defend that pawn, then my rook takes and it's a much better trade for us. Oh, we could take an undefended pawn, attack my undefended rook, and defend the pawn that I was trying to attack. Oh wait, no, but not if my rook is already out of the way. Right.
Exactly. So can he do
Uh,
that? Can he take here if your rook is up here?
so if my rook is up there
Which
and
is the
then
move we're
he,
gonna make. So it's on the board.
yeah,
Can he take here?
if he takes there, no, then he undefends his rook.
Exactly. Huge drawback. So if he can't defend this pawn with the queen, and he has to go here, is that a move that helps black's position or hurts it?
Yeah, it helps. It helps black's position. No, it ties his rook down to the
Okay,
defense of
perfect,
the pawn.
perfect. Exactly. Yeah, no black player wants to ever have to make this move, right? Because then they feel like
Right.
they're stuck, they're defensive, they have nothing to play for. It's a it's like a move that makes you want to resign. So I have to go here.
Yeah. Um, so that blocks our immediate capture of the pawn. Um, we could, yeah. See, so my mind, I was going to say, is immediately going back here. It's nice. It's a tempo on the queen. Maybe it wants to come down and attack, or it has the other moves. That's already just asking what happens. Why don't we look at what was the purpose of his move, and did it open up anything else? Um, Yeah, I'm not seeing an immediate improvement to our position
So this is
that we
difficult.
could make.
So it's
Yeah,
like in a time like this, there's nothing obvious to be done in the sense that, if we had a knight here, then even, a wide range of players would be like, oh, let's bring it here and add a third attacker. Like that's kind of an obvious thing you can come up with. But when there's nothing
right.
like that, we only have a bishop left. It doesn't have like an obvious, you can't just attack this. So then it becomes like, wait, what do I even do here? So I totally understand that feeling.
Yeah,
Um, okay, so when you look at this, if you fully determine that for whatever reason it's impossible to add pressure to this pawn, you can keep the pressure so he's tied down and try to use that to bully his queen for a queen trade. So while leaving these double, which forever threatens the pawn in checkmate, forever tying these down. So make believe these everything highlighted for black doesn't exist and can't even move, right? It's
right.
zugzwang, tied down. This pawn obviously doesn't matter. So all he has is a queen, realistically, that can do anything in this position. So that's all the only. First of all, we only have to look at the queen. What can it do?
Right.
Where can it go? So and then we can say, oh well, it's attacking this. It's attacking this. It's kind of annoying to be honest. Is there a move that can help us defend both?
Defend both. If we advance the pawn, it's defended. And if he chose to say, I've got it, then we could just replace it with another defended, or maybe even better, bring the bishop up and it still defends this pawn and it is defended itself. Um,
What about this pawn?
I I can't move that. Oh, you're saying if I move this, he immediately can capture.
Right, that doesn't defend both.
Um,
This pawn doesn't.
right.
Yeah, you got to defend both in one turn.
Defend both in one turn. And here defends one, but not the other. Um,
This is
Queen
another
to defend,
board
but then
vision.
I don't want to move my queen, right? Because I like this pressure.
Excellent observation. There's one more square that defends both and keeps the pressure.
Uh, um, Defends both and keeps the pressure. Um,
By definition, if it keeps the pressure, which rank must it be on?
it's on 7.
So just go through all
So
the squares and see which one works.
yeah. Oh, I could come here. It keeps up the pressure. It defends. It defends via X-ray. It does offer a trade,
But you're up a piece.
but I'm up a piece.
Exactly. If you weren't up a piece, then you don't want to trade queens, so you can. I mean, unless he's like forcibly gonna win three of your pawns, then you have no choice. But assuming he's not
Yeah.
gonna like immediately collapse your position, you wouldn't trade the queen. You'd try to use it to maybe you use this pressure as a way to win this pawn, try to get some advantage, and then trade queens. But here we have the advantage. It's this piece, not to mention this potential passed pawn right here. Um, and you have things you need to defend. So it's not like you do have more aggressive moves like this, but I mean, if I tell you to do this, you're definitely not going to do that in your game, so there's no point. Um,
Right.
so make this move, and it keeps the solidity. You maintain your full advantage. You can't really blunder your position away. That's why I like this move. Now, me personally, I would have gone for something crazier and blundered everything, but that's just because I want to sack here and gain access to the checkmate. That would have been my idea.
Right.
Now, whether it works or not, I mean, it probably does, but whatever. Anyway, it's black's turn. I'm going to make your move for you.
Yeah, I better recapture my
Because
that
if you
queen.
said any other move, I would have ended this. Okay, so now it's black's turn. We're just going to, I guess, go here. Defend.
um, yeah, so that defends that pawn. That's not my favorite pawn anyway. I guess I could come here and try to collect this pawn, so eventually I can march my pawn up. Um, I could, I guess, start that a little more aggressively by bringing the bishop out. Oh no, because when I move my knight, my pawn is still in the way. So I guess yeah, my first thought would be to come after his pawn. This is my most advanced pawn, which could help us out.
Okay, so the first thing to do in an end game, right? So you need to process that you're now in an end game. This is,
Right, queens are gone. Really pretty wide open board.
mhm. And
Centralizing the king isn't a bad idea.
so we need to zoom out before we come up with lines. We need to zoom
Okay,
out
gotcha.
and we got to figure what trades are good for me, what trades are bad for me. Um, Let me look at my win conditions. So before I even think of moves, I'm looking at this and I'm going, okay, I'm up a bishop. So if in any scenario these rooks get traded, that's an automatic win for me, and he'll lose all counterplay. If my main
Right,
priority is this rook off the board, I can trade at all costs if I can. Secondly, if I can trade my rook and my bishop just for his rook, now materially speaking, I lose 3 points, right?
right,
But if somehow I can use this bishop to force the trade of these in some forcing line, then I know I'm also immediately and automatically winning due to the 2 on 1 here. Now, do you understand how 2 on 1 is automatically winning or no?
yeah. So it's automatically winning with, and I would say that is the absolute weakest part of my game is when it's just pawns left on the board. What are the best moves to make, and
Well,
what are the right ones to do it?
right, but forget the moves. I
Because
just mean,
yeah,
do you understand why they're winning conceptually, not by telling me which pawn to push or anything like that? Like why this is winning.
yeah, because one pawn can't just stop two pawns. And if they're connected, then you have the ability to sacrifice a pawn and then recapture. And now you lost a pawn, he lost a pawn. Obviously, I'm winning.
But what about his king? Can his king come and stop that pawn at some point?
Right. Yes.
And so the idea is very simple. It's just the idea of the royal babysitter. All that means is that king will be tied to that pawn while your king goes and munches on his stuff.
Okay.
By the time he takes that pawn, you'll have taken stuff of his, you'll be up material again, and by the time his king tries to come back in the game, you'll have Pac-Man'd everything.
Gotcha. So it's not that those A and B pawns are going to queen against the black pawn. It's that the king has to come over and defend it and worry about it because without the king, it would happen. And then when his king's doing that, my king's over having fun.
Yeah, I mean, no, no, you're definitely threatening to queen the pawn, which is going to force
Right.
his king to come, which is
Force the
going to
king.
give you the opportunity to infiltrate with your king. It's just a diversionary thing. You know you're not going to actually get the queen. You know he's going to come and then you're going to infiltrate.
Cool.
And I'll show that if I can somehow. Let's see. Wait, did we? What was the last move?
Yeah, the rook protecting his pawn because it was threatened with my bishop. And then my thought was to come over and do this. But with your conversation about let's trade the rooks, that should be our goal. Let's not try to queen a pawn yet. Let's trade our rooks. Um, then I guess a nice move is coming back here because now there's this chance at a trade.
Yeah, I mean, well, when you look at it like that, you have to assume he's going to not trade. You assume he's definitely going to move.
Gotcha.
So you're definitely not going to get the
Gotcha.
trade by doing this. Yeah, you don't want to chase it. You only if it happens to arise in the position
Okay.
where you can naturally do it, then it's fine. But don't like contort yourself to try to make it happen because he'll end up getting activity somehow. So we can go with your move. It's just I just wanted to say before you start that you do the zoom out process. And one other thing in the zoom out
Gotcha.
here is when you're up a piece, you don't want all the pawns to disappear. Like, so you don't want to go on a rampage where you get a pawn, he gets a pawn, you get a pawn, he gets a pawn, like that. Because if you end up with just rook and bishop versus rook, it doesn't matter if it's theoretically winning, you're not going to win that, and it's going to be a draw.
Right. Right.
So try to not just. So if you have a choice between like the rampage, him, me, choose a safer option. Like this move is safer because it at least doesn't hang stuff immediately. Whereas if you go for
Right.
this pawn, maybe he can try to get activity. Who knows? So let's say you make this move, and okay,
Um, what does this threaten? Nothing. He's going to come down, but I've got pawns and a king. Excuse me, pawns and a king to stop this. So I'm not worried about his pawn play over here. I have an opportunity to take this, offer the trade, or at least drive him off of that. And now I've got my two connected passed pawns.
so do you want to take it?
Let's take it. So that threatens this pawn. Um, what's going to be the right move? I could either just advance it or even two because it's protected. I could bring the bishop up, but then that's blocking my pawns. Don't get in front of your pawns. Um, I guess I would, with the overriding concept, is pick a passed pawn and push it, get the rook behind it, and make sure that the pawn is protected so that it can't be captured while you're getting the rook behind. Um, so maybe the concept would be push the pawn, it's protected, bring up the bishop, push it one more, bring the rook behind it.
That is a perfect plan, and it makes a lot of logical sense because considering what's on the board, there's no way he can stop you, right?
Right,
Now, if he had like a knight here, you can't just assume you're going to get like three free moves like this, right? You would have to
right,
consider,
right.
yeah, but here it's obvious you're going to get those moves in whether he likes it or not. So it's a great plan. So let's go with that. And yes, that's the simplest thing. Like, especially I do it. Sorry, I can't even talk. What I'm saying is you remind me of myself back then in that I would do all these observations, but it was a little scattered, and I was making it harder on
Yeah,
myself than it needs to be. It's like, oh, I have two passed pawns, let me push it. It's not gonna hang. I can always support it with the pawn, move my rook, like just push the pawn type of thing. Um, so black goes here.
yeah. I'd say that doesn't do anything to stop my plan. No, no, that wasn't my plan, Joey. So here's the thing. We're almost 2 hours into this, right? So my brain,
I know,
my
sorry.
plan was to move up here to defend the ability to push.
Okay, perfect.
Again, that doesn't hurt anything. So now let's push. Doesn't do anything. Let's get behind it. Let's push. King's coming over. It adds another defender, but I don't think that matters because I have time because he's going to have to come over in 2 moves, and my bishop can get up here and help
But when in
when the
doubt,
king comes around.
what's the safest way to just convert this? Right? Don't calculate anything. Just push this pawn next to its buddy.
Okay, right. So
Because once
I
they
had the
defend
idea of
each
just pushing
other,
one.
there's not.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm not saying you. I mean, you could probably do a bunch of things, but if you just want like I don't want to think anymore, he can never do anything because they're protected,
right.
right? So let's run this up the board. Run this up the board, and now black has like no legal moves almost. I guess this, and then still like you can
Right.
do anything you want. So you could push the pawn, the bishop, but the pawn makes a lot of sense. And black is
Yeah.
in zugzwang. He's do something like this. We just take and which one you want to push.
We want to push the one to attack the king, and that pawn is defended. Whereas if I push the a pawn, I guess it's still defended. Maybe that's the right way. I don't
Yeah,
know.
it's all fine. I mean, there's even funny lines with this check, just forcing him to the side. But you don't need to be
Yeah.
fancy. We'll just pick one. Oh, it's black's turn. Wait, black's turn?
Yeah, we just recaptured. Let's fork those guys. Yeah.
And I know you know how to ladder mate.
Yeah.
Assuming it's white's turn here, what move do you make? Just for like the simplest thing.
Oh, if it's right, he's already in check. Oh,
Oops.
but here, then we can bring this up because he doesn't have any escape because of our pawn.
Right, and it's just checkmate. That was the longest chess game I've ever had.
All right. Some thoughts that I had. I didn't want to like interrupt our game there. What about the 900 mind? You mentioned it at the end. I reminded you, so that I view it as a compliment. You've gotten to where you are. I can get to where you are if I remind you of you. Um, but yeah, the idea is the more things that start happening, I can't easily winnow down the meaningless. So the thoughts kind of keep pouring in and keep pouring in, or the exact opposite happens. I can't focus on the meaningful, and then I get onto my plan. He makes a move, like you said. I got lucky that I could rook drop down and get recapture his knight when his queen went and got my knight. Since I got my mind on that queen and rook battery on the seventh, going after it, I did. I just lost focus, and so that's the 900 brain. That's how do you separate the meaningful from the meaningless so that you don't waste unnecessary energy thinking of everything or miss some obvious things because you've fatigued yourself or lost focus.
Yeah, it all comes with practice and
Yeah,
exposure. I mean, as far as keeping track of certain things, puzzles, and for tactical vision, but um, you need a stronger player to go over your games with you, and you need to simplify your own thought process. So
yeah,
as soon as we change the words ever, you need to, instead of making statements, ask questions. Because
right.
statements won't help you. You'll say 100 things and you'll still be at
Yeah,
square one, wondering where to go from there. But questions will at least guide you in a way. So when we at least include the word, maybe to make this easier for the human brain, the word obvious. So when we were doing this lesson, I changed how I said it. I was like, are there any obvious drawbacks? And then all of a sudden, you didn't list every little thing you saw. You were like, well, no, there's no obvious thing that I could do. What's the obvious threat? And instead of like taking 30 seconds listing everything, you're like, well, nothing. He's not attacking anything. And so it simplifies your thought process. Sure, you're going to miss things, but it'll be way more efficient overall in the long term. Because as you get stronger, patterns are going to go into your brain as you expose yourself to openings, middle game ideas, things people tell you, whatever you see on videos. That brain vision is going to expand. You're going to know more things, but your thought process is going to, like, you're going to be asking the same questions, but your brain's going to be accessing new information, updated information that you have. But the most important thing is the skill of playing, and that has to come from questions. So one thing I did notice in this lesson is you made tons of statements, but you need to make the
Right.
questions and in the proper order. What is the obvious threat? And if it's nothing, just say the nothing. You don't have to list things because, for comprehensiveness sake, you're not. It's not a test. No one's grading you, so you just want to be efficient with it. Is there an obvious threat? No. Okay, maybe you don't spend enough time and you miss a threat, but you're going to notice more obvious. It'll be more obvious to you as you do more puzzles and things like that. So your brain will get upgraded as you do that stuff, but the questioning needs to be there. I know
Right.
it may be annoying to do it every turn, but that's how you have to do it. What's the, you
But
know,
that sounds like the best way to kind of do what I said the flaw was, which is how do I get the important stuff and ignore the unimportant, and how do I not lose focus? The idea is if you ask the questions and go to the obvious, then you're not going to blunder the obvious, and you're also not going to fatigue yourself over a 70 move game if that's what it gets down to by saying every little thing, even the ones that don't matter.
right, exactly. And you're gonna make blunders and mistakes because when you ask those questions, the answers are only gonna come at your current chess level.
Right.
So you're still gonna miss a ton of stuff, but I mean, it's not those questions themselves that are going to bring you to 2000 in the sense of those questions don't teach you new patterns. Those questions aren't going to teach you end game this or that. You know what I mean? But there are
Right.
plenty of people who know a lot of stuff about chess but can't play the game.
Mm-hmm.
And in contrast, I don't know that much, but I have been getting better pretty fast at the game and on my own. I know if I had a good coach, I could skyrocket, but I'm having a lot of fun exploring. But it's due to the questions, and I think it's super important to, even if they're not my questions, make sure you're asking questions, period. What is the drawback? What's my least active piece? Like, whatever question, you could come up with your own if you don't like mine. I mean, just make sure it's questions, not statements.
Questions, not statements. Yeah, that focuses to get just the valuable information. Questions, not statements.
Yeah, because statements don't get your brain working, they don't get your intuition working. If you say I have to go to the gym, no, like your brain has zero neurological like nerve response to that. But if you say
Right.
how do I get in, you know, how, how do I lose 10 pounds before summer because of this? Even if you don't consciously do it, your brain's already like brainstorming things about that scenario.
Gotcha.
So it's
Cool.
yeah, questions are like a secret in life. But anyway, I'm all pooped, and that's all I have for you today.
Thank you for all this time. This was awesome.
All right, I'm gonna go get some food. Have a good evening, and thank you.
All right. I look forward to seeing more videos.
Goodbye, Mike.